on Human Rights Day have been facing yesterday, moving back 15 years or more. It's a reality, not fiction. So I'll break it down for you so that you can fully appreciate what I'm talking about and fully appreciate the solutions that I'm going to offer you on the way forward. This siege is characterized by violence, utmost violence, and corruption, administrative and judicial corruption. Let's start with the violence first. On the 15th of August, 2023, just 2 years ago, we lost a colleague in the office of Kgosi, a man who we worked with quite closely, who was effective in the discharge of tribal functions. His name was Kgosikgolo Kgafela II, a resident of Kgosikgolo village, one of the 32 villages comprising Bakgatla land in South Africa. 2 gunmen entered Jomo's residence at Kgosikgolo. They made no effort to conceal their identity. And there are people who are known in the villages of Bakgatla. They entered Jomo's residence, bypassed his wife and mother, and shot him to death. They emptied their magazine onto his body. We understand about 15 to 18 rounds peppered his body. And this happened in the presence of his wife and his mother. His wife and mother are eyewitnesses to this horrific crime. So, my brothers, just imagine for a moment what it must mean to Jomo's family, his wife and his mother and the entire family. What it must mean to the residents of Kgosikgolo village that a murder like that takes place, broad daylight, with such cold-bloodedness of a snake. Imagine what those 2 poor women go through. Listen to those rounds firing. Bang, 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 18 times. Imagine the trauma that is left on a victim of crime like that. An investigation commenced both by the state police and a private investigation. Out of those investigations, we know who murdered Kgosikgolo Kgafela II. Bakgatla all over know who murdered Kgosikgolo Kgafela II. They know the assassins, they know the driver of the vehicle, and they know the paymaster. And all fingers point to Moruleng Mafia. Moruleng Mafia supported, aided, and abetted by Klerksdorp Mafia, who control the Kokta office in Northwest and the Premier's office in Northwest. And Lituli House Mafia. They support, aid, and abet these horrible crimes that happen to our people. The murder investigations into Kgosikgolo Kgafela II's murder have simply gone cold. It's 2 years now. No arrests, no prosecutions, and the criminals move about in society as if nothing has happened. the villagers of Sifikile and all villages of Bakgatla in South Africa live in fear from seeing a matter like that proceed unresolved when everybody knows the culprits to it. That's just one murder case that I'm sharing with you. There are many other cases of our people being murdered or violated in one way or another by the same mafia group. I myself, I used to live in Muruleng. I used to occupy that tribal office in Muruleng. I was forcefully ejected by the same mafia group from my tribal office several years ago. I was forcefully ejected from the village of Muruleng by the same mafia group several years ago. All the while, they threatening to burn my house with us in it, as they did to another colleague in office of Kgosi, 15th of August again, 1996. His name was Kgosikgolo Kgafela. They murdered him in the same style as they murdered Jomo Kerumeng, and they burned his house. Yet again in front of his wife. The wife to Kgosikgolo Kgafela still lives with the trauma to this date. A king is forcefully ejected from his office. A king is forcefully ejected from his house. A king is forcefully ejected from the village. And they did burn my house a few years ago with my only vehicle in there. A case of arson that also ran cold. Those who burned my house in Muruleng at George Stegman's hospital compound, they too did not make any effort to conceal their identity. They rode in minibuses that took off at the tribal office in Muruleng, which is the base of Muruleng Mafia. They took off from there and went up to my residence, got out of their minibuses, poured petrol over my vehicle and the house and set it alight. All these developments are supported, aided and abetted by the African National Congress. They watched and they supported. Ultimately, the king has had to go on exile from the Northwest Province. I've left the Northwest Province permanently until such time as we can successfully push back these three mafia groups. I've sought refuge in the Western Cape because it is the only province where there's order and which is not controlled by the African National Congress. As far as I'm concerned, there's no government in Northwest. It's gangland. What I'm sharing with you about the violence of the African National Congress to a tribe and its king is only the tip of the iceberg. It's only the tip of the iceberg. We'll continue in this platform for the next couple of months to share more of this sorry episode of the history of South Africa. where instead of the government protecting people's human rights as the Constitution demands, we have the same government or people abusing government to violate Bakgatla human rights with violence of untold proportion. This violence, this violation of human rights is supported, aided, and abetted by administrative and judicial corruption. Let me give you an example of the most recent of that episode. Last week, Wednesday, we received a judgment from the High Court in Mafikeng, which set aside the findings and recommendations of Baloyi Judicial Commission of Inquiry, which was set up in 2016 to resolve the many conflicts that plague our tribe on account of the maladministration that has been going on at the hands of Morile Mafia. So a commission was set up to resolve all those issues. It lasted 4 years. That commission was chaired and run by eminent men and women of the law, eminent jurists. The late Judge Maluleka, Judge Baloyi, Advocate Mahumani, eminent evidence leaders, Advocate Makole, eminent participant lawyers, Advocate Nkaitobi, who represented eminent civil society organization called Lamosa. Lamosa having eminent men and women of the law. He, Nyana Lapidan, had 8 lawyers, attorneys and advocates. The entire commission was recorded in video, audio, and documentary. All the parties participating in that commission were given copies of all the documents that were exchanged in that commission. Despite all that, we have a judgment last week which sets aside all of that. He sets aside on the basis, according to the judge, he says the record of the commission given to him is incomplete. That's what the court says. That's what that judge says. He says that the record is incomplete, was incomplete. I can assure you, listeners, I can assure you, all of you Bakgatla, I can assure you, all of you South Africans, and I can assure you, all of you listeners, that the commission kept a complete record. Because it is impossible for such eminent men and women of the law to run with a commission without keeping a proper record. We were there all the time and we saw, and we cannot unsee what we have seen. A proper record was kept. Therefore, for the judge to set aside the commission on the basis that he, the judge, in his files, he was not given a complete record. That, with due respect, is a very unfortunate judicial error. Very unfortunate judicial error because it is simply not true. Yes, the commissioners kept a complete record, and they gave the premier, who is the custodian of that record, they gave the premier and Kokta a complete record. Who is the custodian of that record given to the premier and Kokta is a man called Rutwane. Rutwane. The foremost hater of Bakgatla, Rutwane. The foremost violator of Bakgatla human rights. So Rutwane takes the record from the commission, and when the court asks that the record be produced, he produces the record in piecemeal, picking and choosing what to place before the record in order to dovetail that with Nyala Pilane's lies. He lies to say the record isn't complete when him and his lawyer have copies of everything. So instead of Rutwane producing the entire record, which is wanted, he produces it in piecemeal so as to create the apparent gaps which the judge now relies upon to favor Nyalala in a very, very unfortunate judgment. If you want to fully appreciate these shenanigans, you must read Rutwane's affidavit, which he filed in litigation which I brought against the same parties, the Premier's Office, Kokta, and Nyala Pilane, in 2012-2013. Rutwane then, he filed an affidavit which supported Nyala Pilane and the Premier. He says very strange things in that affidavit. Very strange things. So this affidavit, will share it with the public in this court of public opinion. You'll have it in WhatsApp. You read that affidavit and you juxtapose that with the fact that Rutwane failed to produce the record which the judge wanted, and Rutwane failed to file an affidavit explaining those gaps in the record, deliberately to create a foundation for the judge to rule in favor of Nyala Pilane as he did. On that score, the fact that it's simply not true that the record is incomplete. On that score alone, we will appeal that judgment and deal with it in other ways that have to be dealt with. But it's a classical example of administrative corruption influencing judicial decisions in order to favor John Molefe Pilane. It's an insult to all of us who participated at the commission. It's an insult to myself. It's an insult to all the lawyers I've mentioned to suggest for a moment that we didn't keep a record. To suggest for a moment that Mabaloi, the chair, and Advocate Mahumane would not keep a record. It's an insult to our intelligence, but we leave it at that as just an example. Example 2. The judge says the commission was not quorate, that there was no quorum. And he makes that decision on the basis of the piecemeal record provided to him by Rutwane, without Rutwane or anyone in the Premier's office bothering to file an affidavit to explain those gaps. He says the commission was not quorate. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not true. It's simply not true. All Bakgatla who participated at that commission find this ridiculous. Because they were there, they saw 3 commissioners sitting at any given time. Once Judge Maluleka passed away, the commission halted for a couple of months so that a replacement could be gazetted and appointed. And that replacement was Mahumane. And when the commission commenced, there were always 3 commissioners. We were there, we saw what we saw, and we cannot unsee what we have seen. Therefore, when a judge at the High Court says that there was no quorum, when he was not there at the commission, we say that's simply not true. He arrives at the decision on the basis of the piecemeal record given to him by Rutwani, deliberately to lay ground for the very decision which Nyala Pilane has obtained at the court. They didn't bother to take an affidavit from the chair, Mabalui. They didn't bother themselves, the Premier's office and Kokta, to file an affidavit. Rutwani didn't bother to file an affidavit when a matter is against Nyalala. But when a matter is against me, he files an affidavit as the affidavit that we're going to share with you in WhatsApp and email. As I say, juxtapose that affidavit and this judgment of last week Friday, and you'll understand why we say these are the machinations of Klerksdorp Mafia, the Tully House Mafia, Murule Mafia, in order to influence a very, very unjust High Court decision as the one that we have experienced. So that's example number 2. Example number 3 is this. Bakgatla Kgafela, custom and traditions regarding Kgosi, that is royalty, is well established in a long line of decided cases, decided by the High Court in Mafikeng itself and the Constitutional Court. These cases are summarized in a judgment by Judge President Hendricks J, delivered in 2011. Bakgatla call it Case 582. Just call it Case 582. That judgment too, we'll share it with you in our platforms. It summarizes the entire jurisprudence of Bakgatla, custom and traditions concerning Kgosi, kingship, royalty. And it's very clear. This judge in the judgment which we received last week decided that he's not following that jurisprudence, but he's chartering a new path which favors Nyala Pilane. He doesn't even say why he doesn't follow judicial precedent. That's strange. It's another very unfortunate judicial error. Very unfortunate judicial error influenced by administrative corruption of the Premier's office and Kokta. No one in this world can ever change Bakgatla custom and tradition concerning Kgosi. No one. Not the Premier and not a High Court judge. Because these customs and traditions come from hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and they are entrenched in jurisprudence that spans over more than 50 years. So we'll appeal that too. And straighten these matters of law. There are many other errors which are in the judgment, but I do not wish to spend the moment of today dealing with it. Safe to conclude by simply saying that that judgment which we received last week Thursday doesn't make sense at all to a rational being who has been alive to Bakgatla problems and the commission of inquiry that ran for 4 years. It doesn't make sense at all. But it's a kind of judgment which reinforce supports, aids and abets the violation of Bakgatla human rights at the hands of the African National Congress. These are just examples of violations that I'm sharing with you today. We'll continue to share other examples in the next coming months in this platform. Bakgatla are hurting. We are hurting. I'm hurting at the gross violation of our human rights by the African National Congress. What hurts most is that this is an organization which our family, my father Kgosikgolo Kgafela II and his wife, my mother, and Bakgatla Kgafela in Botswana, Mushudi, we took care of this organization during apartheid. We accommodated the refugees. My father concealed the guns and ammunition in his house, in his farm. My father took all those risks for the African National Congress. And this is what they do to us. They return love with hatred, hospitality with robbery of the host. And they think that they can get away with this. It's not going to happen, ANC. You are not going to get away with this crass morality, crass behavior, which defies human dignity. You're not going to get away with it. Not with Bakgatla. Kgosikgolo Kgafela II takes care of you. But then you steal from his tribe. And you confiscate his children's throne, including his grandchildren's throne. What kind of a people do that? What kind of humans do that? Well, at the end of this speech, I'll show you what kind of humans do that. Where we are right now is that we have to have solutions. We have to have solutions of how we're going to get ourselves out of this siege. No Jesus is going to come and get us out of this siege. We need to get ourselves out of this siege, and we need to do it now with our solutions, our home-baked solutions. And I, as your leader, I, as your general, your commander-in-chief in this battle, your king, I'm going to offer you solutions of what exactly we are going to do to get ourselves out of this siege. There are 7 things, 7 grounds of activity that we are going to embark upon. 7. It's actually 6. The 7th is an oversight that monitors that these 6 are executed to their logical conclusion. Item number 1. We are going to approach the Constitutional Court on direct access application. And at the Constitutional Court, we are going to appeal this strange judgment we received last week, Wednesday, as well as consolidating all our problems arising from conflicting judgments, administrative corruption, all Bakgatla problems. We're going to consolidate them and bring them before the Constitutional Court for a once and for all court order, court judgment that resolves all Bakgatla problems once and for all. I will be an applicant. My son Matero will be an applicant. The royal family will be an applicant. And we charge ahead as the leaders of this tribe to help this tribe at the Constitutional Court. We consulted lawyers last week Friday, and they assured us that they will be ready to file the direct access application in the next 3 weeks. Let's say 4. There's no urgency anymore. 4 weeks or a month, let's say mid-April to end of April, they would have filed that motion at the Concord. Our respondents will be the usual suspects. Nyala Pilane and his family, Ramono, my uncle, who has betrayed us, he'll be a respondent, Kokta, Premier, and many others. I will advise you on the character of our respondents and also the relief that we seek in my next presentation of next month, whilst the motion has been filed. But that's the first thing that we are going to do, and it will run its course with the hope that at the end, Bakgatla problems, as far as the law can assist, will be decided once and for all at the Concord. That's activity number 1. Activity number 2 is that we are going to conduct a very, very comprehensive forensic investigation. The very forensic investigation which Baloi report said should be done by the Premier's office, which the Premier's office has refused to complete. We will do it privately. It will take a couple of months, if not a year, but we will do it properly. We'll find the right funding and the right professionals, and we'll carry out that forensic investigation. That's item number 2. Out of that forensic investigation, Wokabo, follows item number 3 and item number 4, and they are the following. Once we have the forensic investigation at hand, we are going to open 2 avenues of litigation at the High Court. The first is a civil claim, where we claim damages against all the tortfeasors who have been stealing from our tribe and robbing our inheritance. We'll file a comprehensive damages claim, which I estimate at 100 billion or even more than that. The government of the Republic of South Africa, that is the taxpayer, will be central to that claim, because all these things happen as a result of the government withholding the performance of statutory duties deliberately to violate Bakgatla constitutional and human rights. So they are already in the bag. Also, part of the defendants will be the African National Congress. The party itself will sue. We'll file our case at Mafikeng High Court, hoping that we'll find a fair judge there. Why Mafikeng High Court? Mafikeng High Court, of all the courts in the 9 provinces of South Africa, has got the less busiest role. The role is not busy. So you file our case, we know that we'll run the trial and have our judgment not long from there, hoping that we find a fair judge. We get our judgment, even if it takes 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, we'll get our civil judgment and we'll execute it against our defendants. We'll execute our judgment against the African National Congress. We'll get justice against the African National Congress. And if they fail to pay that 100 billion or more, we will liquidate them out of existence. That is how we're going to get rid of the monster that is purging our society. We get rid of this monster by litigating them out of existence. Whilst other people hope to remove ANC from power by elections, we are beyond that. We are going to remove you, ANC, from existence as the apartheid party was removed from existence. And we'll do that by democratic constitutional means of the judiciary. Because despite these shortfalls that we have at Mafikeng High Court, we still have faith in the democratic processes and the constitutional processes and in the judiciary of South Africa itself. So we'll litigate. Everything, Bakgatla bethu, everything that has been stolen from you by Murule Mafia, Klerksdorp Mafia, and the Thule House Mafia, every little cent, we are going to recover it via a damages claim. We have told every premier who has occupied that office in Northwest that their actions are propelling us all to this very moment where we're going to have to sue the government and your organization to oblivion. Item number 4. Out of this forensic report, we are going to start private prosecutions. We are starting an era in South Africa of private prosecutions. We will find a team of professionals, professional investigators, professional lawyers, very good investigators to put together a docket for the National Prosecution Authority. And we'll simply ask the NPA to give us a certificate so that we can conduct our own prosecution. Amongst the defendants will be the African National Congress. We are going to convict you, African National Congress, out of existence so that you may stop abusing Bakgatla and abusing the people of South Africa. That too will run its course in the courts. Whether it will take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, our goal is that you, the electorate, who keeps empowering ANC to disempower us, you, the electorate, who keeps empowering ANC to disempower us, Bakgatla, to oppress us, Bakgatla, to pain us, Bakgatla. One day, you go to the elections and ANC will not be in the ballot paper. That's what we are going to experience. And then you will remember how your finger has aided the oppression of a whole tribe. Your finger has aided the oppression of a whole tribe. So that's item number 4 of what we are going to do to get ourselves out of this siege. Item number 5, Bokawu. Perhaps it's number 6, is that we, Bakgatla Kgafela, are tying the laces of our boots and shoes. And we are walking or going to the United States of America, the United Nations, Britain, and other countries of the world who are run by kings and queens. And we are going to seek targeted sanctions against the African National Congress. Yes, that's what we are going to do. Unapologetically, unashamedly, and without fear. We are going there to America, and we are going to ask for sanctions, demand sanctions against ANC members and their families. Not against South Africa, not yet, not yet, not yet. Just against the ANC and their family. We are going to ask for sanctions. We are going to make our case as articulate as we hear it in this platform. And we're going to ask for sanctions, and we're going to get sanctions, and these sanctions are going to relieve us of this monstrosity called the African National Congress. All these activities, Bakgatla beso, will proceed in tandem as one package of a war strategy that takes us out of this siege. Maybe the sanctions will achieve quicker results than the court process that we are undertaking. But that's what we're going to do, because we don't have a choice. To us is a matter of survival of Bakgatla or destruction of Bakgatla. To us is a matter of destiny. Whether we'll realize our destiny or we'll crumble down under the weight of ANC tyranny. But we choose that we shall not yield to evil, but evil shall retreat and bow the knee. Because that's who we are. We are Bakgatla, Kgafela. And we have a history of being warriors. Maybe many of you don't know that we are the ones who won the Anglo-Boer War in 1902 on behalf of the British. It's there in the history books. We conquered all the way to Pretoria. Likewise, we'll conquer all the way to Pretoria with this activity that I'm sharing with you. So let me sum it up for you, brothers and sisters, of what we are going to do. Number one is the Constitutional Court case that we are fighting in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Number two is the forensic investigation that's going to lay foundation for number 3, the civil suit. Number 4, the criminal private prosecutions. And then number 5 is the sanctions. Number 6 is the court of public opinion, where we are right now, where every month I will update you of where we stand with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. I will update you on a monthly basis in this platform and other platforms. This is the leadership that we are giving you out of this darkness. It will benefit the rest of South Africa, ultimately. South Africans will be secondary beneficiaries, as they were in 1902, when Bakgatla conquered all the way to Pretoria. So that's what we're going to do. Wakabo. We are no longer banging on the doors of politicians, crying like babies for an audience. We are not protesting, toing in the street, jumping about with no result. We are no longer writing letters to politicians asking them to help us when we know that they cannot help us. We are past that. What we do now is that we fold our fists and fight back for our destiny. And this is how we are fighting back. We fold our fists and fight. We are no longer asking people to see us, to give us an audience. And they refuse to give us an audience as if they are so special as to be God. Even God hears our cries better than the criminals in government do. So we are no longer doing that. We've done enough of that in the past 15 years. We fold our fists and fight back for our destiny, for the future of our children. And we do that in the areas of activity that I've highlighted. When we arrive there in America and in England and elsewhere, our delegation is going to open a fund There, we're going to open a fund, Bakgatla Fund. And we're going to ask the people there to help us with funding and anything that they can give so that we can action these 5 areas of activity to push back Satan to whence he has come from. So we are hoping that the international community will hear us and assist us. Let me remind you this, Bakgatla bethu and fellow South Africans who you are familiar with history. The honorable, most missed father of this nation, Nelson Mandela, who respected my father very much, advised all of us that if the African National Congress were to behave like the apartheid regime, we must do likewise. That's what Madiba said. He said, we must do likewise. Exactly what they did, we must do. What did they do? They asked for sanctions against the then apartheid regime. Consistently, they asked for sanctions and they got those sanctions. So what we are doing here is not anything strange. What we are going to be doing is not anything strange, and you mustn't feel ashamed about it, because we are doing only which our founding father, who we all respected, Madiba, said we should do. We won't take up arms as Umkhonto did, not yet. Because we believe that we can reach our destination, our goal, via the constitutional democratic means I've highlighted. Only when that fails will that be considered. But I can assure you that even as we go on that path, fellow South Africans, there are other South Africans who are seriously considering that path. Yes, they are. And you'll see them soon. Because we've reached a stalemate in this country. It's not just us Bakgatla who are complaining. There are many other tribes of Northwest who are complaining. Thus, we had white apartheid. We had white apartheid pre-1994. Now we have black apartheid. Yes, we have black apartheid. Evil knows no color. Evil knows no color. Black, white, red, it's evil. Injustice knows no color. Injustice here is injustice everywhere. Injustice here is injustice everywhere. Injustice knows no color. Evil knows no color. When you see someone promoting the idea of white versus black and being besotted by apartheid, instead of taking responsibility for their violation of black human rights, they hide behind apartheid and they create divisions between black and white, which divisions should not exist because, as I told you in my last presentation, I'm living here in the Western Cape by hospitality of an Afrikaner family. We have Afrikaner friends. My best friend who has passed away was Afrikaner, a white person. My adopted grandmother, the late Naomi Mitchison, was a Scottish woman, a white woman. We have white people all around us as friends. And for you to create these divisions in order to conceal your injustice on black people, it's very unfortunate, but it will be exposed. Today, we are dealing with black apartheid, and black apartheid must fall by the same sanctions that dropped white apartheid. And us Bakgatla will be at the forefront of that battle, as we were at the forefront of the Anglo-Boer War. This is where we are. Bakgatla bethu. Make no mistake about where we are. Make absolutely no mistake about where we are. It's a siege. It's real. Your king is not living amongst you. Your king's life is under threat. Your king has had to leave Northwest altogether. And the murderers of Jomo Kiruming are still wandering about. Why would I still be living in Northwest when the murderers of Jomo Kiruming are still wandering about? You, the tribe, must put pressure on the Hawks and National Prosecution Authority to start those trials, to start the murder trial of Jomo Kiruming. You must put pressure. Every day, every hour, every minute, you must put pressure that the murderers of Jomo Kiruming, who we all know must be arrested and tried and put together, put away in jail for life. When that is done, your problems, Bakgatla, will be solved 80%. Once that trial starts and commences, your problems will be solved 80%. You must put pressure that the culprits who are stealing your inheritance, whose theft is well documented in many forensic reports. The BDO forensic report of 2012, George Papatakis forensic report, the forensic report by IFM, and other investigations conducted by Hawks, which are now complete, so we understand. And other evidence. These culprits must be arrested, prosecuted, and put away. And all these forensic reports point at Nyala Pilane and Kagiso Pilane foremost. Nyala Pilane and Kagiso Pilane as the foremost culprits who are stealing from Bakgatla, who are destroying Bakgatla. It doesn't matter what Balwe Judicial Commission Inquiry report says, and the fact that it has temporarily been set aside. It doesn't matter, because there are certain issues of fact and law which are standalone apart from the Balwe report. And those standalone issues of fact and law are the fact that there is enormous theft, fraud, and destruction of Bakgatla inheritance. That has to be prosecuted by law enforcement, not Balwe. It's a standalone that you must get fully engaged in Bokado on the ground to make sure that these prosecutions start yesterday. Another standalone is the Premier's duties under the statute, under the Northwest Act on Traditional Leadership and Governance, and under the National Act, the Premier has ongoing statutory duties of oversight concerning traditional councils. He's not performing those functions, and he must be forced to perform them by you, Bakgatla on the ground, not me, because I've passed that stage. So that's what you need to do on the ground. You must stop being divided, and you must stop being distracted by red herrings of people who pretend that there's a genuine dispute over royalty, when there's no genuine dispute over royalty. Your king is here. You can see me. I'm wearing my leopard skin, a leopard which I hunted for me to qualify to wear it. Anyone who wishes to wear the leopard skin of Bakgatla must go and hunt it himself. And the Bakgatla leopard, traditionally, it must charge. You shoot it on the charge. You don't bait it. So if Nyala Piane believes that he's the paramount chief of Bakgatla, he must go hunt his own leopard and shoot it on the charge. But ANC want to drape him a leopard skin to legitimize the robbery of our throne. Yes, we have heard they want to drape him a similar leopard when he has not hunted it. He wants to drape a leopard by the back door. He wants to obtain Kgosi by the back door, by court judgments and administrative corruption. But that won't happen. It won't happen, Bakgatla Besu. It won't happen, good listeners to this speech. It won't happen. His destination is jail. He will be king of convicts in jail, not king of Bakgatla. And that must take place this month or next month with your pressure. So it's important. We as your leaders, we do what we have to do because we have to do it. You as the led, the ones on the ground, you must do what you have to do because you have to do it. And what you have to do is to use your time, energy to put pressure that these prosecutions must start. They must start yesterday. That's what your focus must be on. The rest you leave it to us. We will sort at the Constitutional Court and we will sort it in the other avenues which I have described to you. So this is where we are. It's Human Rights Day today. But this is where we are. What a bunch of hypocrisy we see. Where there's celebration of human rights today and communities like ours are bleeding from the worst human rights abuses, characterized by murder, arson, theft, robbery, fraud. What kind of people do that? Ask yourself, what kind of people do that? People who treat very badly a royal family which has treated them very, very well at a time of need. What kind of people do that? What kind of people do what ANC is doing to the people of South Africa? They murder miners at Marikana, more than 40 miners. They murder mental health patients, about 200. They murder opponents in political campaigns. Murder, 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 theft, theft, theft. They destroy government SOEs, as we have seen at Zondo State capture. They destroy municipalities of South Africa. In Northwest, there's no municipality in Northwest. They are almost bankrupt. And after they destroy municipalities, now they're stealing and destroying traditional communities like ours. What kind of people do that? No empathy at all. No sense of family. No sense of gratitude. As I told you the other time, the president of this country, Cyril Ramaphosa, he's my relative. He's married to my auntie. The first lady is my auntie. She is my mother's first cousin from the Motsepe clan. His brother-in-law, Patrice Motsepe, is my uncle. He's my mother's cousin. This is family. Yet Cyril Ramaphosa allows Klerksdorp Mafia to confiscate my throne. He allows his party to rob our tribe of our inheritance that is left to us by our forefathers. We don't go to KZN or Eastern Cape or to other places to trouble people there with their inheritance. Why should ANC be allowed to trouble us with our inheritance and our throne? But these are my relatives. Aiding and abetting something that is so vile. So you ask yourself, what kind of people is the African National Congress? What kind of people do that? What kind of people destroy state-owned entities, destroy municipalities, kill mental health patients, kill miners, defenseless miners, destroy Bakgatla? What kind of people do that? I'll surmise to you, listener, that these are not humans. The reason why you ask yourself this question again and again and you will not find an answer is because you think they are humans. They are not humans. They are something else occupying human body. And that's why you find yourself at pains trying to reconcile their behavior with human dignity. They are not humans. It's something else occupying human body. And if you want to know what that something else is that occupies the human body, I suggest to you that you watch a movie. There's a sci-fi movie which was released in the 80s. It's called They Live. Remember that. It's called They Live. They live amongst us. Once you see that film, you will find the answer to the question that has vexed you for many, many years. What kind of leaders do this? What kind of people do this? What kind of human beings do this? And you will see that I tell the truth when I say they are not humans. It's something else. When you have a bottle marked water, and it has a clear liquid inside and it's water, and you go to that bottle and you drink water, and the water is finished, and somebody else pours another clear liquid inside that bottle, still labeled water. That liquid is not water simply because it has a label called water. You, who in your hypocrisy keeps calling it water when you know that it's not water, and you keep gulping it and complaining about the poison that goes into your belly because it's not water, you are going to kill yourself. You are already killing yourself by pretending that we have an organization in this country called the African National Congress, and it carries the ideals of Nelson Mandela, the ideals of the Freedom Charter, the ideals of the Constitution. It's no longer ANC, it's something else that is in there. And what is in there, you see it in that movie called They Live. It's a 1980 film, sci-fi, but it's a sci-fi which tells the truth. I watched it 20 years ago. That's how and why I know these things. That's how and why I've survived the violence to this date. Because I know what I'm dealing with. So if you want to know what you're dealing with, go and watch that film, They Live. Anybody who sees the ANC for what it is and sees what is in it, which is shown in that film, They Live, you will reject them. I reject them, Bakgatla reject them, the whole world will reject them. Because you've seen what you have seen. You reject them as a man walking on a path. And on that path, he sees a fresh pile of human feces swarming with flies. That man must cup his nose and mouth and veer far away from that pile of feces. Once you have seen what you have seen, you react like that man who has seen a pile of feces, human feces. Dog feces are better. Human feces are much more disgusting. And this is what we are seeing. They'll be rejected by the whole world. America will reject them. The Western world will reject them. Asia will reject them. Even BRICS will reject them. But other humans decide not to see what is before them. They walk that path and they step on that fresh pile of feces, and it covers their entire shoe. And they walk on and get back home, get inside the house, step on the mat of the lounge, step in the kitchen, and everybody smells feces in the house. But this man does not smell the feces. So I want to conclude today's presentation. I want to introduce you to my son, Kgosikgolo Kgafela. Sit here. This young man here is my firstborn son. He's graduating in UCT on the 4th of April this year, next month. He's graduating in engineering, a very tough engineering discipline called mechatronics. I'm not familiar with it, only to know that it's something very difficult to achieve. But he has achieved it. He's graduating next month at UCT. I have appointed him your Kgosi of Bakgatla in South Africa. I'm Kgosikgolo, I'm the king, and I send an emissary to rule the tribe on my behalf in South Africa. That emissary is not Nyala Pilane. We've long parted ways with Nyala Pilane. That emissary is not my uncle, Ramono Piane Lenzwe. We've parted ways with Ramono Piane Lenzwe. That emissary is Kgosikgolo Kgafela, this young man here. I've written to the Premier last year, September, to tell him that Bakgatla have a new Kgosi, and his traditional council are the following names. I read out the names in December last year. And all we expected the Premier to do was to gazette that traditional council. Instead of doing that, what does Lazarus Mokosi Kedeksa Certificate Kgosi do? He creates an entire mess of this whole thing. Instead of gazetting Masego's traditional council, he appoints, reinstates Nyala Piane as Kgosi. When Nyala Piane long retired to me and was long removed by judgment after judgment, the Premier reinstates Nyala Piane. And then what happens? My uncle Ramono Piane then goes to court. He sets aside that reinstatement, and then he is reinstated. So the situation we have at Bakgatla, as a result of the Premier's mess, is that we have two Kgosi of Bakgatla according to the Premier's records, not according to our records of the traditional institution. According to the Premier, there's two Kgosi of Bakgatla, is Nyala Piane and Ramono Piane Lenzwe. The two protagonists slugging it out at the High Court. Two Kasongos fighting each other for an opportunity to rape another man's wife. Who is that wife? It's Bakgatla Kgafela. And who is the husband? Is the king. They fight to rape my wife. When none of them is Kgosi, your Kgosi is here. So here's your Kgosi, Bakgatla. Don't be confused. Any one of you can believe whatever they want to believe. You can run with red herrings, you can run with propaganda. It doesn't matter to us. The law of South Africa, the Constitution, the National Act on Kgosi, and the Provincial Act of Kgosi are very clear that Kgosi of any traditional community is decided by the customs and traditions of that traditional community, not the Premier certificate. The Premier certificate is not Kgosi. Kgosi is what I, the king, say it is. Even Hendricks J's judgment in case 582, he confirms exactly what I'm telling you today. So here's your Kgosi. I've appointed him. But since the Premier's office in Northwest and Kokta in Northwest have decided that they are going to rob this young man of his inheritance. Firstly, they rob Kgosi Lenzwe's children, that is myself, of our inheritance. Now they go and rob Kgosi Lenzwe's grandchildren, that's Matseho, of his inheritance. This is the ANC. Since they have taken that decision, and we have taken the decision that we are folding our fists and fighting back, which fight may last for the next 5 years maybe. Since that is the position, we have decided as a royal family that Masego will wait before he can assume his duties. And in his waiting, he has enrolled for masters in engineering. So he's graduate next month, and then he starts his master's. Maybe by the time all this morass comes to an end, he'll have a doctorate. So you have before you, Bakgatla, a leadership with impeccable credentials. I myself am a trained lawyer. I'm a retired lawyer. And my track record in Botswana is well known. I was a human rights lawyer, one of the best in that country. And I've retired to assume royal duties. I'm also an author. I published 2 books. A third one is on its way. These are the credentials of your king. And his successor, Matseho, he's an engineer of mechatronics, soon to have his master's. The ANC is denying Bakgatla the opportunity to be led by impeccable leadership, rather preferring to impose upon Bakgatla, upon Bakgatla 2 useless old men with no academic credentials, just so that the ANC can have room to steal and rob us to destruction. This is what is happening. You have good leadership standing right in front of you, which is being prevented. For 15 years, we have been prevented to lead our tribe. 15 years, we are prevented to lead our tribe to a point where now we are in exile from Northwest, living in the Western Cape, because it is the only province which does not have ANC. So that's my son. You have seen him. That's your Kgosi. I wait you to take up his role once we have pushed Satan to the bottomless pit of the book of Revelations. It says that an angel will come wielding a chain, and he will bind Satan and drag him down the bottomless pit and shut him down there for 1,000 years. This is where we are. We are going to drag this Satan down. The very monster you see in that movie called They Live. We're going to drag it down the bottomless pit of Revelations. And we're going to shut him down there for 1,000 years so that Satan ceases to trouble Bakgatla. Satan ceases to trouble the poor people of South Africa who are groaning and moaning under the weight of his tyranny. That's the way forward. Wakabo, you'll hear from me again in the same platform next month. And in between, you'll probably hear from me in short clips and interviews with various media groups. But you will certainly hear from me quite soon in Setswana, summarizing what I've said today. I wish you a happy Human Rights Day in your current circumstances of a siege. Even in a siege, people still slaughter goats and cattle and eat. Even in a siege, people still drink alcohol, smile and laugh with each other. And this is what we should do today and this weekend. Thank you very much for listening to this speech. God be with you all. Siribelo.